Hi, welcome to White Guys for Kamala. I'm John Ennis. This is my co-host Morley. Our guest this week is comic actor Will McLaughlin, and we're just some white guys trying to help out a lady running for president and stand up against all the toxic masculinity coming her way. So, our opening thought this week is going to be about dignity, and it's a little bit more expansive than the other opening thoughts we have, I realized, because dignity is it has a lot of meanings, but it is used to refer to, say, a patient who's ill and bathing them to maintain their dignity, or giving them end-of-life decisions to maintain their dignity. I think in a general sense, dignity could be described as it means the respect that others have for you as well as how you comport yourself. You know, you have to feel like you have your own dignity. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized that if you treat others poorly and try to take away their dignity, you end up losing your own dignity. What do you what does dignity mean to you?
That's an interesting idea. You know, when I hear the word dignity, I think about a lot about, and I bring up my kid a lot on this show, but it's funny, as a parent, you spend so much time sort of trying to articulate what it means to be a good person, and so often you're articulating it in a way that you never really do for yourself. You're figuring out, okay, how do I explain this to somebody in a way that maybe you yourself had just kind of...
It's the first time you've actually articulated it.
Exactly, yeah. And so I look back at, say, like the things that my mom taught me when I was young, and one of the things she always taught me about, say, bullying, or when people are joking around, she would always say, one, don't make a joke about something that the person can't change or control.
That's a good one.
Because
good life lesson.
That's obviously they can't change or control it, so therefore it's not really like something that's up for grabs as far as like something to poke fun at. And two, be wary of making someone else's flame smaller just to try and make yours larger, because that never ends well, and more often than not, you wind up, just snuffing out both flames. You know what I mean? So, for me, those are the kinds of things that come up for me when I think about the idea of dignity, and the idea of acknowledging someone else's dignity, and the idea of how to, as you say, comport yourself with dignity and with some kind of respectability, some kind of honor. Because I think, obviously, the way that we think of ourselves is one thing, the way that we behave and the way that we treat others, obviously, both of those things reflect back on us, I think.
Yes, they do. They do. And that's, you become what you put your attention to. And so it's easy. I'm sure we've all been at that point where you're arguing with someone online and you can't pull yourself out of it, and you just keep going after them over some stranger saying nonsense.
I've never argued with anyone online.
Oh, good for you. And, it's you're becoming one of those assholes online at that point,
right.
And it's easier to do it because you're not in the room with other people where they're watching you be snarky. You're not seeing that other person's reaction, and that's the insulation of the internet. But it is an opportunity to learn, I think, because I think that's part of growing up now, is realizing that I could be someone else on the internet and choose my words and change the argument for how I want, whereas in person, you're like, no, I'm actually still that person in real life, and now I'm becoming more and more like that.
Yeah. The internet is essentially like everybody's in a car and experiencing road rage, and it's removing some sense of like not only consequences to like what would actually, how this would affect someone on a human level, but also an incredible amount of power for one person to have in terms of, I often will look at comments and I'll think to myself, this is what the world thinks. And it's like, no, that's what one person thinks. One person of the world. Now, granted, there's going to be, 10,000 comments on Taylor Swift saying you should vote. And many of them will be very disappointing and hard to stomach as far as looking at the world and seeing, the who's in it. But it really is important to remember that really is a small slice of the great earth we live on,
Yeah, I also think the internet is like, and again, this is a metaphor, and it comes from my friend Chad Carter, who I think you know. He says, it's like when you wear a mask, like something happens to your psychology. He says, like he said, my nephew, like he wears a Spider-Man mask. And as soon as he puts a Spider-Man mask, first thing he does, punches me in the nuts. He says, because he can get away with it. And I feel like the internet is like that. It's like wearing a mask. And so you feel like you can punch people in the nuts because, you're wearing a mask. It wasn't me.
It's true.
It was Spider-Man.
One time, this is a funny story. Speaking of Spider-Man and masks, one time my nephew was having a birthday party and he wanted it to be superhero themed. I had a Spider-Man costume and I thought, this will be great. I'll show up as Spider-Man. And I was probably the only adult there that was dressed in a costume. All of the other children were dressed up, but most of the adults were just normal adults. I show up in Spider-Man and I'm jumping around and some little kid comes up to me and he goes, "You're not Spider-Man." And it was like the tone he had when he said that. Talk about dignity being robbed. And I was just like, I said to him, "How do you know?" And because I'm wearing the mask and all that, and he just points to me and he goes, "Because Spider-Man's not so soft," and pokes me 3 times. And I was like, "You got me there." So.
Now I'm a supervillain, and this is my origin story.
That's
Exactly,
rough.
yeah,
Exactly.
right.
Yeah. Well, when I think of dignity, I think the biggest, most glaring context of taking away dignity is like when police would harass black people who were minding their own business or just trying to go to work or just trying to drive home, and doing everything they can to humiliate them, threaten them, scare them, provoke them into some sort of violent or loud reaction so that they can overreact somehow. And that's a real part of life that we're still living with, that we as white guys don't see so much, but I'd say that's kind of the most crystallized version of taking away someone's dignity like that.
Yeah, I think certainly any kind of bigotry, the intentional dehumanization, the intentional kind of like forcing down of someone for, again, something they can't control or something that you perceive to make you superior in. And then I would say maybe the next thing to me that feels like immediate sort of thievery of dignity is forcing someone into a position of servitude or desperation. I think about like, Trump throwing those paper towels to the Puerto Rican people that were, in such
hurricane survivors,
and horrible, and the idea of, when you see obviously some of these, tragic, horrible scenes in Gaza and stuff, and you think about the idea of desperation that people are in, and the idea of like, how do you, reach those people and recognize without making them feel small, of like, help me, I'm this, shrunken down thing, figuring out a way of, okay, how can we help people that are in need and help them maintain some sense of dignity on top of it? And I feel like, so often white people have gotten so good at that sort of white saviorism thing of like, oh, we'll help as long as you say thanks kind of thing, and as long as you recognize that we did what we were supposed to do, as opposed to some sense of, no, if we truly are all equal, then we're helping you because someday we'll need help too, or someday, or just that everyone on this earth at some point needs help. And it's not a question of who's smaller, who's better, who's richer, who's poorer, who's, smarter, who's dumber, whatever. It's all just a sense of, look, we're living on this spinning rock flying around outer space, and we got to look out for each other,
I think dignity is also something that for men can be lost when they try to look better by chasing women or trying to saddle up to them to try to, to look good. And I think this is a good example of what a lack of dignity looks like. If you can bring that up on the monitor. This was in the news this week, and I didn't really know where to really land on it. But this is Laura Loomer and Donald Trump being very cozy, and it set the internet on fire over the weekend about speculation of their relationship. And while we don't really know outside of rumors,
is that being speculated?
Oh, that's widely speculated. Yeah,
interesting.
And it's hard not to wonder, and when you see these kinds of, when he's always got his hand around her. And she's always pushing up against him. But besides the fact that he's a married man and he's not ever seen with his wife, this is undignified behavior in a general sense. But moreover, she's like a top-notch conspiracy theorist racist. She's so racist, she's been banned from so many platforms. She's been banned from Uber Eats. Like, it takes a lot to get banned from Uber Eats for racism. Okay?
Wow.
That is a joke, right?
No.
How is that not a joke?
She was mad, and she was going off on Twitter because she was mad that the guy delivering her food she thought was Arab or a Muslim, and so she kept going off. And at some point, Uber Eats was like, "Enough! You can't just talk about our drivers like this."
That is hilariously awful.
She was comporting herself with someone who is so undignified that she's attacking Marjorie Taylor Greene and outing Lindsey Graham on Twitter, saying, we all know you're gay.
That being said, I just absolutely love that Marjorie Taylor Greene, Laura Loomer, just eating each other.
This is what fed into the speculation that she was boffing Trump, was because as more than one person pointed out, it had the "get away from my man" vibe to it, and because MTG and Graham are such suck-ups to him that staking out the territory, it made a lot more sense. And they're flying on, she's been flying on his jet, and again, it's all speculation, but like, even as a racist nobody, like, she ran for Congress, lost.
What state is she from?
That's a good question. I'm not actually know. I think she ran in Florida, though. But she chained herself to the doors of Twitter when her account was suspended for racism. And at the end of the day, she realized that the doors actually opened outward, and she'd actually chained herself the wrong way. So she's kind of a clown. She's a Jewish person who hangs out with white nationalists, like Richard Spencer. And
that's interesting.
Posted a vile tweet saying that if Kamala Harris is elected president, the White House is going to smell like curry, which is great, by the way. I don't see what's wrong with that. And that there would be a call center because, Indian people run call centers. So this past week we had the debate, and it was pretty heated. And there was some face-to-face confrontation going on here, and you didn't know what was going to happen. So I'll just play a clip of that here.
Nice.
Oh, my mistake.
Well played, sir. Well played.
That was James
Well played.
Playing their last show.
So I didn't realize that was a recent. When I saw that clip, I thought, "Oh, this is like an old beef between Navarro and Perry."
You thought it was from 1992 or something? Yeah.
Because that sweet video quality.
Yeah.
In fairness, Dave Navarro has not. He's like a portrait in his attic that has aged, while he has not.
Yes.
And Perry Farrell, all due respect, has gotten enough work done that it's still 1994 for his face.
Oh, that's a good point. That's a good point. If you'd have to know all of Dave Navarro's tattoos to keep track, and be like, no, he's got too many for that to be back in the 90s or the aughts, or the teens.
We've got to carbon date these tattoos.
Right.
Yeah. So I'm sorry. So this is the debate.
Illegal border crossings reached a record high
place to
in the
start.
Biden administration. This past June, President Biden imposed tough new asylum restrictions. We know the numbers since then have dropped significantly. But my question to you tonight is, why did the administration wait until 6 months before the election to act? And would you have done anything differently from President Biden on this?
So I'm the only person on this stage who has prosecuted transnational criminal organizations for the trafficking of guns, drugs, and human beings. And let me say that the United States Congress, including some of the most conservative members of the United States Senate, came up with a border security bill which I supported. And that bill would have put 1,500 more border agents on the border to help those folks who are working there right now overtime trying to do their job. It would have allowed us to stem the flow of fentanyl coming into the United States. I know there are so many families watching tonight who have been personally affected by the surge of fentanyl in our country. That bill would have put more resources to allow us to prosecute transnational criminal organizations for trafficking in guns, drugs, and human beings. But you know what happened to that bill? Donald Trump got on the phone, called up some folks in Congress, and said, kill the bill. And you know why? Because he'd prefer to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. And understand, this comes at a time where the people of our country actually need a leader who engages in solutions, who actually addresses the problems at hand. But what we have in the former president is someone who would prefer to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. And I'll tell you something, he's going to talk about immigration a lot tonight, even when it's not the subject that is being raised. And I'm going to actually do something really unusual, and I'm going to invite you to attend one of Donald Trump's rallies, because it's a really interesting thing to watch. You will see during the course of his rallies, he talks about fictional characters like Hannibal Lecter. He will talk about windmills cause cancer. And what you will also notice is that people start leaving his rallies early out of exhaustion and boredom. And I will tell you, the one thing you will not hear him talk about is you. You will not hear him talk about your needs, your dreams, and your desires. And I'll tell you, I believe you deserve a president who actually puts you first, and I pledge to you that I will.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump, on that point, I want to get your response.
Well, I would like to respond.
Let me just ask, though, why did you try to kill that bill, and successfully so, that would have put thousands of additional agents and officers on the border?
First, let me respond as to the
Please.
rallies. She said people start leaving. People don't go to her rallies. There's no reason to go. And the people that do go, she's bussing them in and paying them to be there, and then showing them in a different light. So she can't talk about that. People don't leave my rallies. We have the biggest rallies, the most incredible rallies in the history of politics. That's because people want to take their country back. Our country is being lost. We're a failing nation. And it happened 3.5 years ago. And what's going on here, you're going to end up in World War III, just to go into another subject. What they have done to our country by allowing these millions and millions of people to come into our country, and look at what's happening to the towns all over the United States. And a lot of towns don't want to talk. It's not going to be Aurora or Springfield. A lot of towns don't want to talk about it because they're so embarrassed by it. In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there. And this is what's happening in our country, and it's a shame. As far as rallies are concerned, as far as the reason they go is they like what I say. They want to bring our country back. They want to make America great again. It's a very simple phrase, make America great again. She's destroying this country, and if she becomes president, this country doesn't have a chance of success. Not only success, we'll end up being Venezuela on steroids.
I just want to clarify here. You bring up Springfield, Ohio, and ABC News did reach out to the city manager there. He told us there have been no credible reports of specific claims of pets being harmed, injured, or abused by individuals within the immigrant community.
Well, I've seen people on television.
Let me just say here, this is
the people on television say my dog was taken and used for food. So maybe he said that, and maybe that's a good thing to say for a city manager.
I'm not taking this from
but
television.
But the people
I'm
on
taking it from
television
the city
saying their
manager.
dog was eaten by the people that went there.
Again, the Springfield city manager says there's no evidence of that. Vice
We'll
President
find
Harris,
out.
I'll let you respond to the rest of what you've heard.
You talk about extreme.
There's a lot of things in that clip that's revealing. It was a big deal that he was fact checked
in real time. In real time,
That might have been like the first time in his political career that he's been called out, and that's why he couldn't take it. And that's why he's like, I saw it on TV. I saw it on TV.
Yeah, people on TV were saying this.
People on
not
TV
just
were saying this. Well, that could be something a city manager says. Looking at the headlines that I pulled here, reactions to Kamala's debate performances, roundly very supportive. The Washington Post, how resounding was Kamala Harris's debate win? Let's look at the polls. New York Times, Trump brought darkness, Harris brought light. 14 writers on who won the presidential debate. 13 of them said undoubtedly Kamala Harris. The polling is in, and Harris won the debate, but Democrats shouldn't get cocky, said John Zogby in The Guardian. NPR, the debate between Harris and Trump wasn't close, and 4 other takeaways. CNN, Smirkonish says Kamala Harris won the debate. Here why. Here was another reaction to Kamala's debate. When a prize fighter loses a fight, the first words out of his mouth are, I want a rematch. Polls clearly show that I won the debate against Kamala Harris, the Democrats' radical left candidate, on Tuesday night, and she immediately called for a second debate. There was already going to be a second debate. It was scheduled. She and crooked Joe Biden destroyed our country, blah, blah, blah. There will be no third debate. Here is Taylor Swift's reaction to debate. She timed it perfectly and signed her endorsement of Kamala Harris as a childless cat lady, hearkening back to J.D. Vance's gripe against women who don't reproduce when he wants them to. Yes, she really broke it down in over several thoughtful paragraphs that newspaper reporters covered what effective political persuasion it was. And she's a great writer, you know. We know this. So
This we know.
I think she's a steady-handed, gifted leader, and I believe we can accomplish so much more in this country if we are led by calm and not chaos. I was so heartened and impressed by her selection of running mate Tim Walz, who has been standing up for LGBTQ plus rights, IVF, and a woman's right to her own body for decades. Like, she's really laying it down. And, of course, all Trump can do is write, I hate Taylor Swift. This is like days later. He's still stewing about this.
Like, I can only imagine him tweeting that while he's like pulling his hair out of his head, or like steam is coming out of his ears, like the mayor from Paw Patrol, you know, or something like that. Like,
yeah.
Once again, your kids
Yep.
are having an undue influence on this podcast.
Right. Yeah. And this is the guy who had just posted some fake AI meme saying, I accept Taylor wants you to vote for Donald Trump. As if that had actually happened. He was that desperate for her endorsement.
But now I hate her.
But now I hate
unreal.
her. And I couldn't help but also share these lyrics from her song, The Smallest Man Who Ever Lived, because they seem especially prescient, knowing what would happen. Were you sent by someone who wanted me dead? Did you sleep with a gun underneath our bed? Were you writing a book? Were you a sleeper cell spy? In 50 years, will this be declassified? And you'll confess why you did it, and I'll say good riddance, because it wasn't sexy once it wasn't forbidden. I would have died for your sins. Instead, I just died inside. And you deserve prison. But you won't get time. You'll slide into inboxes and slip through the bars.
Whoa.
You crashed my party and your rental car. You said normal girls were boring, but you were gone by the morning. You kicked out the stage lights, but you're still performing. And in plain sight you hid, but you are what you did. And I'll forget you, but I'll never forgive the smallest man who ever lived.
Wow. See, it fits way better than the guy from the 1975.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's so
see,
much better.
I was thinking that's John Mayer. That's got to be John Mayer.
No. It was
Did she date the guy from the 1975?
Briefly, but my wife has given me the whole lowdown on all of this. Apparently, they had a small thing for years prior to Joe Alwyn that then was, once Joe Alwyn, this is absurd. I'm sorry.
It's not
I don't know that we're the right podcast.
Not as absurd as Paw Patrol. But,
Paw Patrol we're better at, but but anyway, that juxtaposition is pretty stark.
That's interesting.
And it shows you the intellectual immaturity and lack of dignity.
What's a shame. I was looking forward to her 20-minute song about Donald Trump.
Well, someday.
But maybe it'll happen. I don't know.
So debunking time. Kamala cheated at the debate. I just wanted to touch on some of the things as you guys brought it up already, but no, Kamala did not get the questions beforehand. She was just prepared.
Yes.
It was clear, like I said, that she just answered what she was going to say, regardless
And they
of
were
what
all
David
questions
Mears.
that anybody could expect.
Yeah.
The economy,
immigration.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's getting the same questions all the time anyway.
Yeah.
So it's not
what
like
other
you
questions
need
are there
questions.
for a politician?
Yeah.
Abortion? I mean, come on.
No, the moderator, having been in the same sorority from another school 15 years after Kamala went to college. does
Are
not
you
create an
serious?
advantage. Oh, yeah. That was a big thing. Like, she's in the same sorority. Are you kidding me?
God.
It's like, they didn't go to they weren't even in the same state.
I don't know, man. Kappa Phi's, they are tight together. They, even if there's 15 years difference, she's going to figure out a way to say, just so you know, we're going to talk about immigration.
There's only so many black sororities, okay, guys?
Unreal.
So that was one of them. The network president did not affect the debate. No, ABC did not fire the moderators. That was another thing that was going around.
What?
Like, ABC fired the moderators. They're so wrong for correcting Donald Trump and not Kamala Harris.
Wait a minute. Fired David Muir? And
that was a rumor that was started online saying that.
Do you remember when they started the rumor that they canceled Paw Patrol because of defund the police? It's
Well
a
played,
callback,
sir. Well
but
played,
it's
sir.
true.
Well
they
played.
actually said for a while they canceled Paw Patrol because of the police, because the Black Lives Matter don't like the police, and they have a police dog in it. And Paw Patrol had to like.
That's right. They
let
did.
the world know we have not been canceled.
Yeah.
Black Lives Matter has not affected Paw Patrol in any way, shape, or form.
Right.
I just
Dogs are
love
doing fine.
I just love the things that the other side is making our side say. I mean, so
That's
the
what a
fact
lot of
that-
this podcast is.
The fact that David Muir even had to say, "Yeah, no one is eating dogs."
For me, I feel like a lot of the time I remember when I watched the O.J. Simpson documentary, the big famous long one, and I remember watching it, and they did such a good job in that movie of setting up context that really made you understand the moment of time and how so many people would say, I'm fed up with this system that is clearly broken. I'm fed up with feeling like it's a rigged jury against, my people, African Americans in America. And so I'm with this guy. He's the first time that we have the chance to fight the system. That's what OJ was to them. It was this example of like, now we got a black guy with money who can really fight the corruption that exists. Right, yeah. And so I think there was so much of that a lot of the people that did support him, and certainly it wasn't everybody. I'm not trying to generalize that like African American people all roundly supported O.J. Simpson, but when you would see those that did, there was an element you could see the frustration of like, but this is my guy. This is the first chance that we have where it feels like it's somewhat of a fair fight, or at least more fair fight.
Being patronized on the street
right?
By Christopher Darden.
Exactly. And so I think then there was an element though after it was over that there was a kind of the world, I think at large, certainly the ones that already felt he was guilty, but many of those who felt he wasn't, that were kind of like, oh, we kind of picked a really bad representative because in this case, guy probably did it.
He did.
Guy probably did it,
he beat his wife a lot. Granted.
Right. But I mean, even
question.
once he was innocent and there was this found innocent, there was this, I think, collective kind of like, for those who wanted that to be the outcome, they're like, okay, we got it. There was joy. But it didn't last forever because there was this feeling of like, he was probably not the best representative for our cause, And I think that's what they see in Donald Trump. There's an element of it's finally a guy that speaks for us, a guy that represents us. And similarly, he is a very flawed representative of that. And I think that, God willing, someday there will be a collective agreement kind of thing like, oh yeah, no, he was a piece of shit.
Also in debunking time, it's sad that we have to go down this, but it was a joke and it was the weirdest moment of the debate, but it became a big problem since Trump went off on Haitians eating dogs. And so this is the mayor of Springfield, Mayor Rue.
Nice.
Rumors that have been circulated related to our Haitian community. We wish to clarify that we have not been able to verify any credible reports or specific claims of pets being harmed, injured, or abused by individuals within the immigrant community. The news story regarding a cat being killed and consumed did not originate in Springfield. It actually involved a Canton woman who was arrested for animal cruelty last month.
Unfortunately, Springfield became targeted for a lot of harassment. The Proud Boys showed up to start to march.
Oh, really?
Yeah. There's been threats all week since then. Even today, schools are being evacuated. Hospitals are being evacuated because of bomb threats being phoned in just to harass the residents of Springfield. And this was an article about a woman saying, it just exploded. Springfield woman claims she never meant to spark false rumors about Haitians. On NBC News saying, the woman behind an early Facebook post that helped spark baseless rumors about Haitians eating pets told NBC News that she feels for the immigrant community. Yeah, and this is what's so outrageous to me is that this week and last week, this week we saw Trump complaining about people eating pets. Last week he was making up stories about kids getting sex changes at school. And, there are real things going on that are worse. School shootings are happening still.
Right.
And you don't have to come up with something else to try to scare people about. Worrying about your kid getting shot at school is scarier than
having tampons in the boys' room.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Tampons in the boys' room, or having someone like come after your dog, which is you don't think is really going to happen anyway. But it's more of an abstract. Well, someone's doing it, and it's clearly a racist bait because they're not saying about like, oh, those Norwegians,
right?
You know, those Canadians are coming in and eating our dogs,
right?
You know, it's always you know the dark ones that they're going to say this about. You know, the Koreans. You know, it's always that kind of othering that, and it's a pretext to dehumanizing them. And so but JD Vance still wanted to keep it up, and he's double tripled down on it. And this was a revealing exchange with Dana Bash on CNN where she was confronting him throughout this interview about the fact that the Haitians that he's complaining about in Springfield they do have asylum. They're not illegal immigrants. They're very constructive citizens in Springfield, and trying to get him to agree to some basic humanity, and he instead decides to attack her.
Affirmatively say now that that is a rumor that has no basis with evidence?
Dana, the evidence is the first-hand account of my constituents who are telling me that this happened. And by the way, I've been trying to talk about the problems in Springfield for months, and the American media ignored it. There was a congressional hearing just last week of angel moms who lost children because Kamala Harris let criminal migrants into this country who then murdered their children. The American media totally ignored this stuff until Donald Trump and I started talking about cat memes. If I have to,
but it wasn't just a meme,
create stories so that the American media actually pays attention to the suffering of the American people, then that's what I'm going to do, Dana, because you guys are completely letting Kamala Harris coast. You had one interview with her. You talk about pushing back against me, Dana. You didn't push back against the fact that she cast the deciding vote on the Inflation Reduction Act, which is why a lot of Americans can't afford food and housing.
You just said that you're
creating
creating
about
a story.
Public policy.
Sir, you just said that you're creating the story.
What's that, Dana?
You just said that this is a story that you created. So the eating dogs and cats thing is not accurate.
Dana, it comes from firsthand accounts from my constituents. I say that we're creating a story, meaning we're creating the American media focusing on it. I didn't create 20,000 illegal migrants coming into Springfield thanks to Kamala Harris.
What I love about that clip is watching her eyes start to blink after he said, if I have to create this, and then her mouth starts to slowly open.
Did you just say?
And then she asked him about it, and he freezes. And it's like the longest silence I've ever seen on CNN. And he's trying to pretend it didn't happen.
He wanted to do the whole like cell phone thing of like, I think I'm losing
love
you.
signal.
Yeah,
Love signal.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
I'm sorry, what was that?
He was trying to say, I'm sorry, Dana. He's like, you just said you made it up. And he's like, no, I created the story about this other thing that I'm just creating.
Yeah.
Right.
That felt like a David Brent from The Office kind of moment. Like just kind of, sorry?
What's up? Yeah. Yeah. And you see his eyes start to widen because he's got that eyeliner on.
To me, it's
or guy liner.
Guyliner. I'm always just like, this goes back to what we were talking about before, where the degree of lies that are spewed out that are so quickly fact checked, you know what I mean? Like that are like it reminds me of when I was, like a kid and somebody would be like, yeah, my brother, he plays for the Chicago Bulls. And you'd be like, oh, really? He does? Yeah. He's Michael Jordan. That's my brother. And you're like, what? Your brother's Michael Jordan? And it's like, it's these ideas of telling a lie.
Because he's my dad,
right? telling a lie that can be disproven, like with our little handy hand computers these days. It just blows my mind that it's like, how long? And then you realize like, oh, the idea was create the news. Then all you need to say is, but I saw people on TV talking about it.
He's like,
You
but my
created
constituents.
it.
Oh yeah, my constituents. Yeah. Sure.
But I think that's part of the playbook. It's to flood us with all of this just nonsense, absolute nonsense, and distract us and make us have to do all this fact checking. I mean, I say us. I mean, whatever, the media,
but that's
and
why
whatever.
we're here, is to go through the shit.
Yeah. And not actually talk about real issues, real things that are affecting
whether or not it happened.
And
And attack the media for not saying what we want to, because we're such victims all the time, and they have it out for us.
It's crazy when we go, because I think for the last 3 years, it's been culture war bullshit. You know what I mean? It's been like woke. Oh, woke this, woke that, like Antifa, whatever. And that has sort of run out of gas to some degree because they need to be talking about policies or are going to be asked about that. And so then they're like, okay, well, what is a similar line of bullshit that completely throws everything off and distracts everything, but we can mask as being part of some sort of a policy rather than just they're trying to teach critical race theory in schools or whatever. Like they're like, well, we got to talk about immigration. We got to talk about the economy. So,
but how do we scare them?
Right, exactly. How do we scare them, and how do we make it seem like the threat is an existential one rather than one that actually has solutions? You know?
Now, this is an actual. So this is another a follow-up. Rich Lowry, editor-in-chief of the National Review, who just a couple weeks ago wrote the New York Times opinion piece, "Trump can win on character."
Oh, wow.
Which is a doozy. And so just today he was on Megyn Kelly's show talking about this interview.
Rich Lowry. Oh, my God.
And he was earlier in the interview that she was talking about how, we've disputed this idea that there are wild geese being eaten by migrants. The fact was, it was the photo that went viral. It was a city worker carrying some geese that had been killed in like a traffic accident or electrocution or something. And so, but he was a black guy, so they made it about Haitians. So that's what's happening. And as Steve Martin put on Twitter, is like, if you think geese can be easily grabbed and eaten, I want you to go do it. Go for it. You go get them. Let's see how that goes. Okay. Yeah, but just today, and we'll turn it up just so you can hear in the studio. But
the police have gone through 11 months of recordings of calls, and they've only found 2 Springfield residents calling to complain about Haitian migrants taking geese from ponds. Only 2 calls.
Yeah, migrant. What did I say? Migrant? I meant migrants. I meant whoa. Sorry about that. Anyway, so back to winning on character.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
That's
I also
doozy.
think it's crazy because, who do you guys call when your cat disappears?
Can't call the fire department anymore.
No. Who do you want? Do you wind up texting or calling your?
Put up a sign on next door.
Clearly, there's only one call, and that's the Paw Patrol.
There you go.
That's what I love about Paw Patrol. If I can go back to Paw Patrol, what I love is that the dogs talk, but the cats don't.
So, yeah, that's
is that
true.
so?
Yeah.
Well, technically, there are a few cats that talk. Wildcat is a stunt driving cat. That's a cat that talks. But yes, the Kitten Catastrophe crew does not speak.
Where is the
only meow.
consistency?
That's what I love about it. It's a dog-centric world.
There are some dogs that don't talk, so it's sort of next level.
This is felinophobic.
Yeah. But my point is, I don't know if I lost my cat, I'd be like, I gotta let JD Vance know.
I'm just saying it how it is.
Where's my congressman's number?
Be like, please, JD Vance, find my cat. Like, I think that's probably he's probably the last person I would think to, if I lived in Ohio, that I would think to contact if I was.
I'm going straight to the U.S. Senate.
Right?
Yeah. Okay. I saw Caitlin Collins hold JD Vance's feet to the fire after the debate and said, look, just because your constituents say that they saw Bigfoot doesn't mean that they saw Bigfoot. He said, Caitlin, I get what you're doing. I get what you're doing. I get what you're doing.
Yeah, she went
here.
in on that. Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. So, but here's the flip side of that. Also in the debate, Kamala Harris is talking about women struggling for bodily autonomy since Trump appointed Supreme Court justices that were keen on overturning Roe v. Wade, even though they said they wouldn't do such a thing. It was established law. And so one thing she mentioned, that women are sitting in parking lots bleeding out in their cars because they can't get treatment because doctors are afraid of being charged with a felony for treating a woman who's having a miscarriage. And this week in Men Making Men Look Bad, we're looking at John McEntee, who was a former Trump advisor. He was a Heritage Foundation staffer. He actually worked on Project 2025. He's got the trifecta here. And he also does these videos where he's sitting online
this guy.
eating food and making false bad faith arguments.
Can someone track down the women Kamala Harris says are bleeding out in parking lots because Roe v. Wade was overturned? Don't hold your breath.
Present. I'm right here. I had a 19-day miscarriage in Idaho because of the abortion regulations. I was turned away not from 1 ER, but 2 ERs. Technically 3, because I walked into one and they said they wouldn't help me and I had to walk out. On day 8, I went to the 3rd official ER that I got checked into, and I never did receive a DNC. They gave me 1 dose of pain medicine in 19 days. I continued to suffer exponentially for the next 11 days. I blacked out in my hallway due to blood loss. I stopped eating, so my daughter stopped eating. So I had to eat with tears running down my face because it was actually painful to eat because I was in so much pain. Everything hurt. But my daughter needed to eat, so I was not about to make her not eat because I wasn't eating. I developed a heart condition called AFib. It means my heart doesn't work right anymore. And it fucks up. So if I get too excited, too hot, too much in pain, too traumatized, if somebody yells at me too much, my heart fucks up. And so I have to regulate for my heart to keep active. Otherwise, I could have a heart attack and die. I have to deal with these side effects for the rest of my life because of abortion laws. And I can't control other people's actions. I can only control what I can do. But yeah, women are bleeding out in parking lots. I actually have a pinned video of me saying they're gonna just let me fucking bleed out here, if you want to refer to that. But I'm present. Hi, my name's Carmen. You can Google Carmen Brewster and find the ABC article, the Insider article. Yeah. You can find a whole bunch. BuzzFeed. But yeah, we exist.
He got ratioed by thousands of women talking about this happening to him. And it just underscores that men should not be making decisions for women's body. They should not be precluding medical procedures because they want to score points. And to drive that home, ProPublica just today released a story about how abortion bans in Georgia killed at least a couple women, and this is the story of one woman in particular. Amber Thurman waited in pain in a hospital bed, worried about what would happen to her 6-year-old son as doctors monitored her infection spreading, her blood pressure sinking, and her organs beginning to fail. It took 20 hours for doctors to finally operate. By then, it was too late. And there's already a maternal health crisis in this country that third world countries don't have. Mm-hmm. It's so bad. And so it's tragic, it's outrageous, it's infuriating to see smug men taking this upon themselves to try to control women and remove health options from them. On the brighter side, White Guy of the Week, Terry Jackson. This is in Nashville, Tennessee. If you look in this picture, if we could bring it up all the way on the monitor, if you look at the picture on the left, you'll see this corner in Tennessee is covered in Trump Vance signs, Andy Ogles, Marshall Blackburn, all of this redundant stuff. And by the way, I think part of like that denial, part of that like, no, really, he did do these things is reflected in having to oversign your yard. You know, having to cover everything is part of that denial. And I think that this
is that one person's property.
That is,
or is that just public?
That's
property?
A business. Actually, I don't know if who owns the property proper. I think it is a business building.
Okay.
And right there on the corner, there's one man standing there with a sign that says Vietnam veteran for Kamala Harris. And that's Terry Jackson. And on the right, there's a picture of him visiting the memorial. And then there's a closer photo of him there. And he spoke to someone this week, Molly Sakurs, whose handle is @MalMod. And he's 80 years old. He was a medic in the Vietnam Air Force. In the Philippines, he treated, cared for, and carried thousands of wounded soldiers and civilians who were mortally wounded, limbless, and dying. He's a retired nurse from Vanderbilt, and he also worked for the state of Tennessee. Mr. Jackson drives 30 minutes every day to stand either in front of Republican Christian Women's Building on West End Murphy Road or in Franklin, Tennessee, under a Confederate statue, or corner of Hillsborough and Wedgwood, carrying a Vietnam Veterans for Harris sign in a sea of red. In his words, I don't usually do these kinds of things, but when the military is maligned like it is now, I can't allow it. The last time I did this was when John Kerry ran and the Swift Boat saga. I don't wear my hearing aids, so I can't tell a fuck you from a thank you. I stand at attention. I don't respond in kind to people who yell or flip me the bird because it would kill my message. My target are millennials and younger. I want their attention. I'm a one-on-one person. I like talking to the young people who stop by who've never voted. I don't tell them who to vote for. I tell them to seriously look at the people running, look at the plans, and I tell them it's your future. I'm 80 years old. I'm still kicking, just not as high. And that's why Terry Jackson is our white guy of the week. And so in lighter fare, this is a video that I made with Will.
Really?
Well, it's a favorite one, but also it happens to be so timely this week because so much what we were doing last year, we made over 100 episodes of a fictitious Florida GOP spokesperson.
Wow, over 100?
Yeah. Talking, speaking about actual things that were going on in Florida under Ron DeSantis, you know, everything from the Disney fight to the school curriculum fights, and the, because they were always so ridiculous, you know, their strategy for fighting climate change as houses and cities are being destroyed is to outlaw state references to climate change. Right. Problem solved.
Yeah.
So we were very tempted to dive into the idiocy of what they're purporting to do in Florida. And this happens to be one of my favorite bits, but it also is so timely, as we'll see, of the scare tactics that they're resorting to that you're like, I can't believe you made this so long ago.
The Florida House has passed the Taking of Bears Bill, HB 87, a law that would cut through all the burdensome regulations that comes with shooting bears. It's reached a sad state of affairs that Floridians can fatally shoot other people without fear of reprisal, but aren't afforded the same liberty when it comes to bears.
Since when did bears become a threat in Florida?
We're talking about the ones that are on crack. They break your door down and they're standing in your living room and they're growling and tearing your house apart. I mean, when you run into one of those crack bears, you should be able to shoot it, period. And you shouldn't have to pause or be afraid that you're going to get arrested or harassed or pay fines. That's just crazy.
Wait, what crack bears?
There was a whole documentary on them last year.
Are you talking about Cocaine Bear? That was a comedy, not a documentary.
Look, I don't know. I just saw the trailer, but it was enough to get Florida Republicans worked up to write HB 87.
But there hasn't been a single incident reported of bears having ingested crack.
Look, the Taking of Bears bill isn't about bears. I mean, do you understand?
Not at all.
It's about removing punishments for those that need self-defense from bears. The target of this bill is nuisance bears, which are increasingly encroaching on residential neighborhoods in search of food, posing a risk to humans and pets, and, once they find a dealer, using crack cocaine.
But what if this will allow people to kill bears even if no threat exists and then argue self-defense?
You're just fear-mongering now.
You're the one talking about crack bears breaking down the
door. All right, okay. There are many reasons to fear freebasing bears. Okay? I mean, what if a grizzly upset about their depiction on Fat Bear Week came by? Huh? Or ran out of crack and wanted to know if you had any more on you? What if one of the bears asks you to watch his crack for a minute while he goes to check on something, and then another bear comes along and says, hey, that's my crack. And then you're like, oh, I didn't know because some other bear asked you to watch it for him. But then that bear comes back and he's all like, hey, what did you do with my what do you mean you gave away my crack? And you're like, hey, I can't tell you bears apart. And now the bear gets offended and he pulls a gun to shoot you. And then you wonder, wait. Should I defend myself or should I worry about hunting ordinances? But then you shoot the bear first. That should be legal. Support HB 87.
Same old song, the same old song. That was a real law, the Taking of Bears Act. I don't think it passed. I think it got out of the House committee, but it did not become law. But the idea of, and some of those quotes are
we
real.
can see Florida's overrun with cocaine bears now.
Yeah.
So
I some of those quotes are real. I took it from the guy who said it, who tried to pass that bill.
That was kind of the craziest part about those things was like how much were just news.
Oh yeah.
How much of those things was not John Ennis writing these things? Right. It was just, this is real. Going, oh yeah, that's real.
Yeah, I'm not that creative. I need a suggestion from the Florida press, and then I can write the piece.
One of the things I love about your performance specifically, though, is
do tell.
I love the sort of like shame on you look that so often these politicians give when they're confronted with anything. I mean, you saw it with J.D. Vance in terms of him just being like, I see what you're trying to do.
Here you go again, media. Here you go again.
Yeah, like you're not gonna do. You're doing what you do, and it's this like incredibly condescending kind of attitude that's had of like you stupid person, or like you evil person that's just once again trying to twist my words, and it's like I just get so tired of not only that attitude, but also the sort of the forced folksyism of like we see beyond you. You might think of us as stupid media, but guess what? We see beyond your lies. Right, and all that. And I appreciate the fact that that you really exuded that energy of like shame on you for trying to ask me a gotcha question,
about what I just said. Yeah. Yes. So
it's all Meisner techniques.
Yeah, that's right. So in closing, we'll look at another clip of Kamala's campaign from this past week because I found it inspiring. And as we started to touch on earlier, it's such a trap to keep talking about all the dumb shit Trump does and all the shit that J.D. Vance says, and that's what they want to do. They want to flood the zone with shit. Yep. They don't want to talk about Project 2025. They don't want to talk about how jobs thrived under Biden and how under Trump it was a net loss of jobs. They don't want to talk about the fact that the stock market's at a record high. They don't want to talk about, the fact that Trump killed the border bill that he's now complaining about. So we have to, as much as anyone else, also show what Kamala's talking about, and that there's so many other things out there that matter. And so this is a opening from her rally in Pennsylvania that I thought helped remind us of the energy that's going on out there.
Good evening. Can we please hear it from Mary Grace? Back in Pennsylvania. Hi, everyone. Thank you. Okay. We got some business to handle. Okay. So let me start by saying to everyone here, thank you for all you are doing and for taking the time to be here this evening. One of the things that I love about everyone who is here and what we are doing, in the midst of this moment where there are people trying to divide us as a nation, trying to make people feel small and feel alone, these are moments that remind all of us that we are all in this together as one loving community. So thank you all for the time you've taken to be here. All right, so Pennsylvania. 3 days ago, Donald Trump and I had our debate. You watched it. So here's the thing. So I take it many people here watched it. So you'll remember that night I talked about issues that matter to families across America, like bringing down the cost of living, investing in America's small businesses, protecting reproductive freedom, and keeping our nation safe and secure. But that is not what we heard from Donald Trump. Instead, it was the same old show, the same tired playbook we've heard for years with no plan on how he would address the needs of the American people. Well, folks, it's time to turn the page. Turn the page.
That's the thing. It's time to turn the page.
Amen.
And when she comes out and says that, like they want to divide us, they want to make us feel small and alone, and that we don't matter. And that's how I feel when I see JD Vance put his shit on TV and yell at commentators. That's how I feel when I see some guy on Facebook lying brazenly, trying to get his point across, and then run to another point after that one's been knocked down. And it absolutely is looking at those crowds, at that energy. It's not just her, it's everyone there. And this really is a movement of people who are ready to address the needs of our country and not look for other people to punch down on. So.
Yeah, and I'll point out too, because I mean, again, she's incredibly inspiring, and I was very late to the Kamala game. Like, I mean, when I saw that first debate, I'm like, oh, Joe's got to step down. He's got to. I call him Joe. But I'm like, Kamala Harris, really? Is that going to happen? Because I felt like my opinion of her has been shaped because she's just been kept in the shadows, and the media didn't really, expose her. But then once she came out and defended Joe Biden, I'm like, hey. She sounds like she's got it going on. Why didn't we see more of her? And yeah, they were stepping up her profile more as the campaign, like in South Carolina, talking about abortion rights and things like that. But it just wasn't getting the traffic that I think that she deserved as vice president. And and I'm I was a doubter before, but I'm super on board with excited, and she is my candidate.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I was feeling for
you and Taylor Swift.
And Taylor Swift, yeah. I was feeling.
And coincidentally, we both dated the guy from the 1975.
That's true. You
briefly.
had a long. Okay.
Briefly.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay.
I don't like
podcast.
I don't,
So right now,
I don't like talking
spill
about
the dirt.
It was a tough year for you.
Yeah. I felt for the people in the back who had the letters that spell out Kamala. And the pressure would be to not be the ones being like, Al!
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, you gotta put it down. Okay, sorry. Okay, yeah, right. So that's our episode. Thank you very much for joining us on White Guys for Kamala. We do not have a Patreon, but we are asking you to support the Harris Walls campaign through this link at secure.hackblue.com/donate/white-dudes. Thank you again to Will McLaughlin for being our guest and making us officially the McLaughlin Group.
Yes.
And we'll see you next week.
Friend of the Beetle Bonds.
Thank you again for joining us.
This episode was recorded at Green Lab Studios in Los Angeles, California. Our engineers were Paul Roman, Daniel Amato, and Owen Stinsmullen.